The European Parliament will kick off the hearings of the commissioners designate on Monday. During this type of interview, commissioners answer both written and oral questions from MEPs to demonstrate their expertise, commitment to Europe and integrity.
Over the next weeks, every commissioner designate will go through a hearing. That is 3 hours where the commissioner designate will have 15 minutes to expose their program for the commission. Then they will have questions from the different committees and he can answer the questions and there will be a debate on these issues. Then there will be an evaluation by the chairs of the committees and the presidents of the different groups, and they will decide if they accept or reject the commissioner.
If a commissioner designate is rejected, their role may be adapted, or another name from the same country must be proposed, and the procedure must start over. In 2019, the Hungarian conservative Laszlo Troszkani and the Romanian socialist Rovana Plumb were rejected. The MEPs also rejected the candidacy of French Sylvie Goulard because of doubts about her integrity and independence. This time, it is the Patriots for Europe and European conservative and reformist candidates who are most at risk.
There is the Italian candidate Raffaele Fitto that has been criticized. I don't think so much, to be honest, for his persona, but for his party, because he comes from the far right party of Meloni in Italy. Another candidate that had been discussed a lot as maybe facing troubles also for political reasons is the Hungarian commissioner that is actually right now already the commissioner and that wants to stay on for a second term, Olivier Vaheli.
The hearing of the commissioners designate is a deeply political process. According to the researcher, political groups are not hesitant to retaliate against one another.
It might also be that everybody is a bit more mild towards each other because they want to prevent the tit for tat, and so they kind of carefully, avoid too tough questioning to not endanger their own candidates by being too tough on the candidates of the other parties.
Rousak also anticipates that the toughest questions will come from the Greens and the left, as they have no candidates and therefore have nothing to lose.
Moldova's pro-Western President Maya Sandu has won a second term in a pivotal presidential runoff on Sunday. Sandu took more than 55% of the vote in an election overshadowed by claims of interference.
Moldova a fost sub un atac fără precedent pentru istoria întregii Europe. Bani murdari, cumpărare ilegală de voturi, implicarea în procesele electorale a unor forțe ostile din afara țării și a unor grupări criminale, minciuni, inducerea urii și a fricii în societatea noastră. Poporul nostru s-a unit, iar libertatea și cetățenii au câștigat.
Sandu's challenger was the Russia-friendly former Prosecutor General Alexander Stoyanoglu, who finished well behind her with just under 45%. Moldovan police said on Sunday they had reasonable evidence of organised transportation of voters, illegal under the country's electoral code, to polling stations. And the Foreign Ministry said polling stations in Germany and the UK had been targeted by false bomb threats intended to stop the voting process. In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Moldova applied to join the European Union. It was granted candidate status in June of that year, and in summer this year, Brussels agreed to start membership negotiations. The shift to the west annoyed Moscow, but it denies meddling in the election.
"4,000 additional soldiers from Madrid and other parts of Spain arrived to support rescue teams in their search for missing people as they drain water and mud from underground parking garages across Valencia.
Parece ser que alguien vio entrar gente pero no vio salir. Entonces, en este momento no sabemos, y hasta que lleguemos abajo y podamos comprobar no sabremos a ciencia cierta. El caso es que bien es cierto que el agua entró con tanta virulencia que arrastró todo hasta el fondo.
214 bodies have so far been recovered, mostly in the eastern Valencia region, as tsunami-like floods swept across the region last week. A wave of volunteers took to the streets and joined the cleanup efforts. But with more heavy rain expected to hit the region, a warning was sent out requesting people to stay at home and off the roads. The government is under scrutiny for the delayed response, warning people about the severity of the floods. With no time to react, many were already on the road, working or in underground garages when the flash floods hit. A crowd of angry residents threw mud at King Felipe and Queen Letizia, as well as government officials who were visiting the city of Paiporta on the outskirts of Valencia, one of the most heavily impacted areas by last week's deadly floods. Security officials were quick to open umbrellas to offer protection from the flying mud, while in the background people were screaming insults. The devastating floods, which killed at least 214 people, claimed the lives of at least 60 people in Paiporta. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was the first to leave the scene, with Valencian President Carlos Mazón following shortly after. The king and the queen stayed behind, and the monarch was determined to hear out what people had to say. And after approximately half an hour of tension, they were escorted away by police officers. The pair were expected to travel to Chiva next, another heavily impacted town near the city of Valencia, but this trip was allegedly postponed.
Protesters in Belgrade have demanded the arrest of officials just days after a concrete canopy collapsed at a railway station, killing 14 people and injuring 3. Police formed a cordon outside the Ministry of Construction and Infrastructure as several thousand people called for ranking government ministers, including the Prime Minister, to step down.
Ono što smo danas podcrtali bila je odgovornost onih koji sede u vladi i ministarstvima i koji su odgovorni za tragedije koje su se dogodile.
The concrete canopy that ran along the front of the railway station in the northern city of Novi Sad collapsed suddenly on Friday. 14 people were killed, including a 6-year-old girl. The 3 injured, who were between 18 and 24 years old, all had to have limbs amputated. The train station has been renovated twice in recent years, and critics of Serbia's government attributed the disaster to rampant corruption, lack of transparency and sloppy renovations. Serbia's government has promised a thorough investigation, with prosecutors saying they've already questioned more than 24 people. But critics believe that justice is unlikely to be served, with the government in control of the judicial system and the police. It's been a busy Sunday for the 2 main contenders in the US presidential race, with less than 24 hours to go until polling day on Tuesday. Both Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump held campaign events in key swing states, battleground areas widely expected to decide the outcome of the election. In Michigan, Harris vowed to turn the page on a decade of politics driven by fear and division. She described Tuesday as one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime and expressed confidence that she would win the race for the White House.
Well, you all know what we say. We are not going back. We are not going back. Because ours is a fight for the future.
Trump, meanwhile, spoke confidently of an election victory at his rally in North Carolina.
We have a big, a beautiful lead. All we have to do, Mike, all we have to do is go out on Tuesday and vote, vote, vote.
Poll trackers, however, suggest that Trump and Harris remain neck and neck in North Carolina, as well as in 6 other swing states. At a rally earlier in the day in Pennsylvania, Trump resorted to familiar unsubstantiated claims of vote rigging, claiming that fraud was already underway in the state.
With less than 24 hours to go until Election Day, the race remains tight. But over the past few days, the mood has been shifting in favor of Kamala Harris. And here's why. Late deciders seem to be breaking in her favor, and a stunning poll from Iowa with her in the lead seems to be suggesting that she's a stronger force in the Midwest than expected. The main reason for the late mood swing, though, is her Republican opponent. Donald Trump's rhetoric has become increasingly erratic and violent, going after his political opponents with a vulgarity that is noticeable even by his standards. For the Harris campaign, that's a gift that keeps on giving. An advent calendar of insults of women in particular. And you can feel that voters are noticing, at last. With one more day of campaigning to go, we might be in for a surprise outcome. Stefan Grobe, Euronews, Washington.
With the US presidential election just a day away, polls show a tight race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Euronews Persian spoke with Iranians in Tehran to find out which candidate they hope will enter the White House.
به نظر من انتخاب خانم هریس قطعاً منطقی‌تر و بهتر از آقای ترامپ هست، چون اگر آقای ترامپ توی این انتخابات برنده بشن وضعیت اقتصادی ایران از اینی که هست بدتر خواهد.
شخصا دوست دارم آقای ترامپ رئیس جمهور بشه، چون عملا شرایطی ایجاد می‌کنه که پول مردم ایران هر بی‌ربطی‌ها نمیشه.
از اونجایی که در آمریکا چیزی به نام ساختار نظاممند سیاست تحقق داره برخلاف ما، فکر کنم چندان تفاوتی حداقل در قبال ما نکنه که چه کسی رئیس جمهور بشه. اما شاید خب هریس رو قلباً ترجیح بدم، به خاطر اینکه در مسئله اوکراین موضع محکمی داره و میگم حالا بر ما که خوب نمیشه، ولی خب حداقل شاید برای اوکراینیا بهتر بشه.
به نظرم ترامپ، فکر میکنم عملکردش در خاورمیانه نابسامان تاثیرگذارتر باشه. هریس همون بایدنه که سیاستش در افغانستان که خیلی به ضرر ما باشه.
While these concerns are specific to Iran, they also resonate with international and European perspectives. And given reports of a very tight race, it could take days before the final result is announced.